Testing. Good evening, councillors and members in the public gallery. I will officially open this evening's ordinary council meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note this meeting is being live streamed. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. Item 3, announcements from the presiding member. There are none this evening. Item 4, attendance. Councillor Maleka and Councillor Clark have provided apologies for tonight, and all other councillors are present in the chamber. Are there any councillors who would like to apply for leave of absence? I do have a request from Councillor Maleka, who has requested a leave of absence for the dates of the 28th of May 2024 to the 9th of June 2024 inclusive. Can I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Ossowski, seconded Councillor Palmer. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. So I'll now move on to item 5, disclosures of interest. Councillors, are there any interest to disclose? Councillor Ossowski.
Thank you. Mine is for item 10.2.1, the financial reports for the period 30 April 2024. My mother's house that she lives on, the street that she lives on, is mentioned in that report for one of the roads that got upgraded this year. So it's an impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well then, if not, we will move on to item 6, which is public question time. Members of the gallery, I'll first call for questions on items on this evening's agenda, and then I will open to questions not on the agenda. Please provide your name and suburb before you ask your question, and keep in mind that you're limited to 3 questions. So does anyone have any questions on an item on this evening's agenda? Please come forward.
All right. Good evening, councillors. I'd like to start with first thanking Councillor Sally Palmer, Councillor Bull, Councillor Lorna Clark, and Councillor Natta.
Sorry, do you mind just stating your name and suburb before you
I'll
continue?
start again. Nirmal Singh from Embleton. I'll start with thanking Councillor Palmer, Councillor Natta, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark for voting against the differential rates motion in the last OCM, and especially acknowledge Councillor Johnson for ensuring that we can submit deputations on the report and advertisement on the differential thing.
So just to be clear, this is public questions, and then I will get to the deputation.
So from that, because I could submit a deputation only because of her raising the issue, I have a few questions, about 10 questions, and I think I'll ask the first 3 and then come back later. The first is that the recommendation for differential rates were given in 2020 Paxton report, and the budget development workshops have been going on since November 2023. Why has the advertisement for these rates left out at such late, leaving ratepayers only 3 days to put in their deputation today, and that too only if they can go through all the details of this important proposal? Only 3 days.
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director of Corporate Services.
Through you, Madam Mayor. This report was always going to be a late submission to the council meeting, and the reason that it needs to come to this council meeting is because we're seeking a council resolution to seek ministerial approval for the vacant land minimum category, and we need to do that in order for council to then adopt their budget in June.
If I may...
Sorry, do you have another question?
Yes,
We're not going into debate.
Sure. No, it was a secondary question, but anyways. Considering that the report on the submission against the advertisement was published only on Friday, 24th of May, why shouldn't the agenda item this 10.2.4 be deferred till the next OCM, given ratepayers enough time to properly consider the rate cost on them, especially in these times of cost of living crisis?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the purpose of this report is to consider submissions that have already been received from the community, and that closed last Thursday, the 23rd of May. So the report was put together as quickly as possible to be distributed to council and the community.
And just to add to that response, the actual differential rates were published as part of the April agenda. So the public it's been out there in the public since April.
Okay, I'll come back with other questions last, if that helps, or I can ask.
You have one more?
I've got 8 more.
Yep, you've only asked 2 so far. Would you like
Sure,
to ask
okay.
another
Yeah,
one
sure,
now?
Sure. The statement and objective of rates says that the reason is to encourage owners of vacant land to develop. Can the city please publish any reports or academic researches or surveys which show that raising the rates will actually lead to significant property development within 1 or 2 years?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm unaware if there is any research that's been conducted to validate that statement. However, in absence of any research, that is why the city considered benchmarking of local governments that surround the city of Bayswater and used that as a basis to form this proposal.
Thank you. I'll come back later. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on an item on this evening's agenda? If not, does anyone have any questions on items not on the agenda? Please come forward.
Aileen O'Rourke, Bayswater. At the AGM of electors, the Bayswater Tree Canopy advocates had several questions that related to the tree canopy data that were not answered due to pending data from the February LIDAR flyover. We were advised that this would be available in May. They were looking at the report in mid-May. When and in what format can we expect the outstanding information to be available?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director to respond.
Through the Chair, the LIDAR survey was undertaken in February, and it takes a fair bit of time to process that data. So we have somebody working on that. It's a consultant external to the city that's working on the data. There's a fair bit of refinement that needs to occur with that information, and we're still working on it. But we're very close to having the results available. Once those results become available, they will be presented to the council, and then we'll also be able to provide that to the public as well.
So in what, is there a particular format that will be provided? How will it be provided to the public?
Through the Chair, in terms of the format, I mean, what we're doing is comparing to the previous LIDAR. So we've basically used the same parameters, and we'll be presenting the figures in the same way. And we'll also have some representative maps that will show what the changes are as well in terms of canopy coverage.
Okay. The second question is vaguely related. We were also advised that the 223 Urban Forest annual report will be completed once data is received. How is that progressing?
I'll go to the Director to respond.
Through the Chair, once we have the LIDAR information and we have those results, we'll be able to pull all the information together and provide that report to the councillors.
Okay, so no estimation of when, or?
Through the Chair, what we're looking at is potentially probably another month before we have those results.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, many tree deaths have occurred since the February flyover. Will the city be obtaining data on those trees that have died? And again, where will that be available to us?
Thanks for your question. I'll go to the Director.
Through the Chair, we've done an audit of all the trees in the city that have succumb to the dry weather, and we'll have that information together with all the other tree information at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions not on this evening's agenda? Please come forward.
Thank you. I'm Georgina Kerr, Bedford. I've been advised already that this one's been taken on notice, but I'm going to read it out anyway. In the city's long-term financial plan, so for 2017 to 2027, on page 16, there's budgeting listed under new capital projects for strategic planning and place for Bayswater Town Centre road and streetscape redevelopment of the following amounts. For 2018 to 2019, $60,000, 2019 to 20, $500,000, 2020 to 21, $70,000, 2021 to 22, $500,000, 22 to 23, $70,000, and 23 to 24, $500,000. So a total of $1.7 million over 6 years, including the current financial year. In the most recent 2 annual reports, I'm unable to find reference to this allocation being used. It's possible I've overlooked that. Can the city please provide an update on whether these allocations outlined in the long-term financial plan for Bayswater Town Centre road and streetscape redevelopment have been budgeted for and spent over the past 6 years?
Thank you for your question. It will be taken on notice and a response will be provided in the agenda of the next ordinary council meeting.
Thank you. My other question, there have been a number of reports from residents around the city recently of finding dead or dying owls who appear to have been poisoned by rat baits. So there's 3 parts to my question. First, has the City of Bayswater undertaken any rat baiting this year? Do you want me to ask the other parts or just?
Yeah, you might as well.
Secondly, I note on the city's website that it says that the city's environmental health branch supplies a limited quantity of rat poison for residential premises. Does the city provide second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, which are known to be extremely harmful to owls and other native fauna? The final part of my question is, can the city distribute advice to residents on how to control rodents without the use of these second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides?
Thanks for your question. I'll go to the director.
Thank you. Through the chair, I will have to take that on notice and provide you a response in writing if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions not on an item on the agenda? No? Mr. Singh, did you want to ask some more questions?
Thank you for the opportunity again. Nirmal Singh from Embleton. Continuing from my last question on the report and academic researches, in the absence of the requested report, research papers, etc., along with the published SOR, how does the city believe the submissions supporting higher property rates are underpinned by exhaustive financial considerations of the rates rather than the kind-hearted desire of the ratepayers to see the housing crisis easing?
Thanks for your question. I think that's a decision for councillors.
Sure. Thank you. The SOR for higher rates for improved commercial industrial properties gives the reason that adding additional rate revenues in sources to offset the higher cost of associated with servicing these infrastructure assets in commercial areas. That's the reason given. Can the city give any detailed breakup of how much expenses are spent specifically on assets in commercial areas versus the other areas?
I'll go to the director to respond.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In the 30th of April council report, there was a list of projects identified to support the commercial areas in the 24-25 proposed budget.
Thank you. Can the city please brief the council and the ratepayers on the success from other local governments who have imposed differential rates, that is higher property development activities directly resulting from higher rates within 1 or 2 years?
I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't have any reports on how successful other local governments have been in using rates to drive development.
Thank you. Can the city please outline the higher expense requirement associated with the vacant residential properties in comparison to improve residential properties to justify higher rates proposed to be imposed on them?
I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the statements and objects and reasons aren't justifying the higher costs of servicing those vacant residential lots. The objects of that land category are to encourage development, to make a more vibrant community and to address the housing shortfall.
Thank you. The other questions are, the rate table attached to the agenda item shows an additional rate collection of about 2.94 million that will go to fund a shortfall about 2.126 million in city's operational budget. Can the city please outline what it is doing itself to reduce its own expenditure when it expects the ratepayers to cough up higher rates during these cost of living times?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this was a council-led business planning and budget process where council analysed all of the service plans and projects that are proposed to be delivered and looked at a rating structure along with other revenue sources, including grants and reserves, to deliver a proposed balanced budget.
Thank you. The Landgate website shows that the last GRV calculations for the properties in the city were calculated in August 2021. The 2023-24 calculations for City of Stirling raised GRV on average by 22.7 for residential properties and 9.5 for industrial properties. More recently, the average residential rents have increased from 410 to 600 per week, which is about 46% raise. In these lights, can the city explain when the next GRV calculation for City of Bayswater will be conducted, the expected trend, and the effect they will have on ratepayers, especially when they are considered with these additional differential rates?
I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the new valuations are delivered every 3 years. So the last set was in the 23-24 year. When there is a situation where the valuations significantly increase, it is a usual practice of local governments to adjust the rate in the dollar to deliver a more balanced approach to rating. Just because the GRV increases doesn't mean that council maintains the level of the rate in the dollar.
Okay. Thank you. The second last question is, the ASIC insolvency data shows almost 600 businesses went under in the 8 months up to April. ABC reports that business insolvencies are at their highest record in this year due to higher rents and falling revenues in our cost of living crisis. What effect the city believes these higher differential rates will have on the small business and tenants in their business viability?
That's also a decision for council.
Sure, thank you. The last question is that the city provides the financial transactions in its OCM and minutes in a PDF format. Can it be provided in Excel, which makes it much more easier to study them?
I have to go to the director for that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe that the current format they're provided in is a requirement of how the agenda is built in the system, and we wouldn't be able to provide that in Excel format.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members in the gallery? Okay, councillors, the city has received questions in writing from 3 ratepayers this evening. The questions and responses are listed in your run sheet, and I'll take those as read. The questions and responses will also be provided in the minutes of this meeting. So I'll move on to item 7, confirmation of minutes. And we now need to confirm the minutes from the ordinary council meeting of the 30th of April 2024 as amended in the addendum. Do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Ossowski, seconded Councillor Palmer. Councillor Ossowski, did you? No.
Nothing,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 8 is presentations and petitions. Do any councillors have a petition to table? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I have one petition about item 10.3.4, request for removal of trees. The petition was signed by 124 residents from all suburbs of the city of Bayswater, and they are saying, we, the undersigned, request in relation to item 10.3.4, request for removal of trees of the May 2024 Ordinary Council meeting agenda, that Council resolves to reject the request for the removal of the trees on the verge adjacent to 33 Bath Road, Morley.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder? Are you moving,
Yes,
Deputy
thank you.
Mayor? Seconded, Councillor Latta. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is to accept the petition. That's Councillor Eason, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? That's Councillor Ossowski and Councillor Sutherland. Thank you for the petition, and I note that the council will be considering this item, which is the subject of this petition, this evening. Do you need it? Like, we'll just get the petition, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. There are no presentations this evening. So, due to item 10.2.4 differential rates being issued after the agenda briefing forum, I'm accepting deputations on this item to be presented at tonight's ordinary council meeting. And councillors, we have received one written deputation on this item from Mr. Nirmal Singh. This has been provided to councillors and is available on the city's website, and I will take that as read. All other deputations were heard at last week's agenda briefing forum. Delegates' reports, there are none this evening. So I'll now move on to item 9, which is method of dealing with agenda business. And pulling first this evening is Councillor Johnson.
Okay. Apologies, I don't have anything.
Okay. Councillor Ossowski?
I'll pull 10.4.1, the terms of reference item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Councillor Eason?
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, 10.2.4, differential rates.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer? Councillor Sutherland?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Latta?
$10.3.4. The request for removal of trees.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor? Councillor Bull? No? Okay, so thank you, councillors. We'll now move to consideration of the reports in section 10. Can I please have a mover and seconder to bring forward items 10.2.4 and 10.3.4, which were subject to deputations? Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Latta. All those in favour? That's unanimous. So the first item is 10.2.4, differential rate submission. Councillor Eveson, you've pulled this.
Yes, so I believe that there's an alternative in the run sheet that was provided.
Are you moving that?
The very first one in the run sheet. Sorry, give me a second.
So it's on the screen.
Yes, could you just scroll down a little bit? Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Would you like it read out or?
No, that's fine, and I'm happy to second that.
Okay, no worries.
Go ahead.
Look, differential rates. We've done a number of workshops, I guess, to get to this point, and thanks to the city for their guidance. The move to differential rates is an important shift to a more sustainable financial position for our city. Aligning us with local government rating structures and a move to differential rating is also a key recommendation from the Paxton reports. complementing many other operational improvements and strategic shifts the City and Council has or is making. This alternative motion seeks to remain predominantly aligned to the original rating structure that the City sought feedback and received 50 submissions from, with one key adjustment: a concession for businesses in the Bayswater Town Centre who have been significantly impacted due to Metronet's construction works, responding to the financial hardship they've experienced over the last few years. And no surprise, it was a key theme in the feedback that was received. 31 businesses in the Bayswater Town Centre are looking to get this concession, providing much needed assistance to those who have been impacted by the train station works. I'm probably going to stop it there because I might, I might seek, I guess, look, I have seen the other alternatives that are in the run sheet. Probably I'll address some of those. So there is other alternatives that are in the run sheet that I've seen or that are proposed, and I'm very comfortable that this is what's on the table for this motion is addressing the greater good, I suppose, for the city overall. Ratepayers making up a predominant portion of our city, and everyone is doing it tough. But the position of the city is obviously we've got to ensure our financial sustainability. So this is a method that I believe is fair, reflects the strategic position and the direction that the city is moving towards. And I'll listen to the rest of the debate.
Thank you. So as seconder, I'll speak. Firstly, thank you to Councillor Eason for moving the alternate motion that I've provided to Council for this item. Councillors, as you are aware, together with the administration, months of work has gone into determining the differential rates that were adopted by Council in April for advertising. Following the advertising period, the City received a total of 50 submissions. The majority of the submissions received supported the introduction of differential rates as advertised. Of the submissions received that did not support differential rates for commercial properties, over 70% of those objections were specific to businesses in the Bayswater Town Centre due entirely to the financial hardship they have experienced over the past few years due to the state government's Metronet works in Bayswater. As Mayor, I understand the unique challenges these specific businesses have faced, and I have been active in supporting Bayswater businesses through this disruptive time, and I continue to support them and advocate on their behalf. In regards to the introduction of differential rates, I've listened to their feedback and taken on board their concerns. The motion in front of you provides a solution for those businesses. The motion in front of you respects the consultation process and respects the majority of respondents. The motion in front of you provides the best outcome and lowest rate for both these businesses and our residents. And let's not forget our residents, our mums and dads, our young people, our retirees, our pensioners, and our large migrant community. Our residents make up more than 85% of our ratepayers. By not supporting this motion, you are effectively putting all those people, more than 85% of our ratepayers, in a worse off position than if you supported this motion. And how would you explain that to our residents who are struggling to keep a roof over their head? So I urge councillors, make the right decision and support this motion. Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor Latta.
Thank you. I'd also like to foreshadow my alternative. I won't support this because I don't think it addresses the fundamental inequity with the differentials that are proposed. And I guess I'll outline some of those issues for everybody. Because of the fact that 85% of these ratepayers are residents, it means that for a small decrease in the residential rate, there is a really large increase on the commercial rate. And this creates a really inequitable position. Around 90%, maybe more, of tenants actually pay the commercial rates as part of standard lease agreements. Those that don't pay it as outgoing have it bundled into their rental amounts. Commercial landlords do not pay those rates. It is the businesses that make up the communities that we live in. When I was first elected, I was asked by residents while door knocking over and over again what I could do to reduce empty shops in Maylands. There are really limited levers that we have to do that. But hiking up commercial rates creates a disincentive to open a new business in this area, and it may contribute to businesses closing or moving. In particular, for Maylands, my concern is around seeing what Town of Vincent is advertising, which is a very low commercial rate compared to their residential rate in their differentials. They're doing it the other way around. And Beaufort Street in Mount Lawley starts looking more and more attractive for businesses in Maylands. And I don't want to see those empty shops increasing, and I don't want to see businesses closing. Most business owners I have spoken to have had the most difficult few years ever. From COVID impacts, which many barely survived, swiftly followed by rising costs and cost of living pressures. These impact businesses and business owners as much as residents. There are so many benefits of thriving commercial areas. Thriving businesses add amenity to our local areas. They are important sites of community and connection. At the same time, businesses do not use many of the services that make up our budget. From libraries, parks, animal control services, many do not even use our waste services. They are serviced differently. But I have not seen any evidence to suggest that businesses utilise a larger amount of our services or have more overall investment by the city. And so I cannot see an equitable justification for disproportionately taxing them. On vacant land, I'm much more comfortable with the current proposal, and I know that we discussed different rate in the dollar for that particular one, some much higher, but I don't feel comfortable with it being any higher than it currently is, because I think that we need to see what the actual impacts are in terms of encouraging development. The gross rental value, which is calculated in the rates, the gross rental value for vacant land is very low because it's not improved. So this kind of balances out. Whereas for commercial gross rental value, it's already differentiated by Landgate. It's calculated differently to residential value, meaning an overall higher rate for commercial and industrial, even when the rate in the dollar is the same as residential. So increasing the differential rate for commercial and industrial actually compounds that. I think that I will leave it there and allow others to debate, and I hope that we reject this particular one, and I would like to have the opportunity to explore other alternatives. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Bull?
Can I ask a question? A couple of
Yeah.
questions, thanks. Just having a look at the amendments that are proposed. So the businesses within the Bayswater Town Centre identified in the structure plan will get a concession, which means that their rate in the dollar will be the same as the proposed residential rate in the dollar.
Correct.
The following year, will those businesses' rate in the dollar be whatever is adopted as the commercial industrial plus whatever rate rise to the commercial industrial is applied
That'll be a
in the following
decision
year?
for council next year as part of the budget setting, because differentials are advertised every year.
So there is the possibility for future councils to continue to apply the residential rate in the dollar to the businesses in the Bayswater Town Centre, but we don't know whether that will happen or not in the future?
Well, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I will speak against this. So we just heard utter uncertainty in what is before the future rate rise for businesses in the Bayswater Town Centre. And, you know, I feel like it's cold comfort that they may get potentially a discount, well, not really a discount, that they get what they would have otherwise got, which is a residential, well, you know, uniform rate. But there is every chance that they may get a commercial rate in a year's time, or they'll get less. Who knows? We have absolutely no idea, as we just heard. And we don't know what the future economic situation in our town centres are going to be in a year's time. And so the thing is that rates in the dollar never go backwards. And if what is before us ends up being adopted by council, there is every chance that future councils will add extra to the commercial and industrial rate in the dollar in the future. The question around whether differential rates are considered by this council have come up time and time again, and one of the primary reasons why it hasn't been looked at, and the feedback from the administration, is because of the ratio of residential improved properties to all others. And we heard, and that was confirmed by the Mayor, that such a high proportion of our rate base is residential. And while we want to keep rates as low as possible, for decades there have been other ways that council has been able to keep rates below 5%. Since 2012, the rate rise has been under 5% every single year. And from memory, from the year 2000, only one time has the rate rise been above 5%. Every other time it's literally been below 5%. And so I really do believe that there are other ways to achieve this, not by requiring our commercial and industrial properties cross-subsidise residential properties. We know that there are other ways to do it because it's happened for decades in this place. It's radical. An 8.4% rate rise is radical. This is not just an incremental increase. And you have to remember that it's 8.4% this year, and this amount is baked into the future. So even if this council goes back to uniform rates, this amount is still baked in the future, because I can guarantee that we'll be told that we can't go backwards in our rate in the dollar. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Sadowski.
Thank you. I believe that there is some misinformation being provided in the debate, and I'd like to, if I can have an opportunity to explain why I think so.
So the point of order is
I don't believe the information Councillor Bull is giving is factual.
Okay, just give me one moment.
That's right.
So you can debate and then I'll determine whether there is a point of order.
Sure. Councillor...
Oh, so he can't call the point of order now? So can you just clarify what the point of order is?
Sure. It's been mentioned twice now that the rate in the dollar never goes down.
No, what's the actual point of order?
Is the factual nature of the information that's been provided to council. I don't think it's factual.
Just give me one moment. So, Councillor, it doesn't fall into a point of order being either relevance, repetitiveness against the local law or offensive. So you will have an opportunity to debate any issues that other councillors have raised during this, but unless you can find a point of order that you believe is relevant.
Madam Mayor, sorry to refer back to our last council meeting. In April. Councillor Eveson was speaking on a particular item, and I raised a point of order in regards to the factual nature of the stuff that he was speaking about, and I was able to give that point of order based on the belief that I thought the information he was providing was not factual. It was, however, factual. That's fine, but I raised the point of order based on facts, and I'm raising exactly the same point of order.
Thank you. I'm just going to seek clarification. I wasn't at the April meeting, so... Sorry, Councillor, there's no point of order at this stage that I can see. Councillor Ball, please continue.
Thank you. And so on the basis of what I've described, I think that going towards differential rates is not appropriate. I do think it's appropriate to be thinking about how to keep rates as low as possible. Just introducing a concession provides no future certainty, and asking the commercial properties to cross-subsidise the majority of the rates when that can have a detrimental impact on not only the areas but also the economic development work that we're supposed to be doing, which could be undermined as a consequence of this, I think is something that shouldn't be supported.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Palmer?
Can I just ask a question, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. In point 3, it actually says the concessions will equate to $6,882,000.63, and that this will be funded from the opening surplus.
Sorry, Councillor, can I just correct you? It's not 6 million, it's 6,000.
6,000, okay.
So $6,882.63.
That was a slip. I didn't realise it said that. And that's coming from the opening surplus. Is that correct? So how much more will come from the opening surplus? Because that is still quite an amount. I mean, what is it? Where is it coming from?
Sorry, the $6,882.
Yeah. It says the opening surplus.
Yep, so I'll go to the Director to respond.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the opening surplus in the draft budget is in the order of $960,000. So this will take $7,000 from that.
That's really good to hear, because that way we can lower our rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, I have a question as well, please, if I might.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just to seek clarity on the process, we've got a number of proposals. We've got the proposal on the table, and we've got a few, a foreshadowed motion as well. What is the process if we were to change this? Does it need to be re-advertised? What bits can council do now? What's the implications if we made a change to what's been advertised now? Can someone just explain the process, please?
I'll go to the Director to respond.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the requirement under the legislation is that council advertises its intention to impose differential rates. That's what has occurred. And then you are required to consider the submissions, which is the purpose of tonight. And when you adopt your budget, having considered those submissions, you adopt your rates with or without modification. There's no requirement to re-advertise.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up question, please? So does that mean that whatever we adopt tonight, we could adopt something different next month?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the final adoption, the only adoption of rates is when the budget is adopted. Tonight's decision by council triggers the ministerial approval process, but the decision around what the rates in the dollar are and the minimums tonight are still informing that draft budget. They're not adopted.
Can I ask a follow-up question then, please? So the advertising, is that just for the category of the vacant land then? What's the ministerial approval? If you could just clarify the difference.
I'll go to the director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the statutory advertising, you must advertise your categories of land, so our 4 categories, and their rates in the dollar and their minimums, together with a statement of objects and reasons. The ministerial approval is because the City of Bayswater will have more than 50% of its vacant residential category paying minimums. And when you trigger that 50% threshold, the minister must approve that.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. So if we were to adopt differential rates at this meeting or in June, does that mean we need to keep them in future, or do we need to advertise them if we're going to change them in future? What's the process for subsequent years
I'll
after
go to
doing
the
this?
director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if council wishes to impose differential rates as part of its budget deliberations, they must be advertised each and every year.
Thank you.
Did you wish to speak?
Can I speak later? Can I think about
I'll
it?
go. I'll see if there's anyone wish to speak on this item. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I would like to move an amendment, please. And I do have it in the run sheet. So I would like to replace the table on the screen with the table that I have in the run sheet, which provides different ratios for residential commercial.
So I'll ask the mover if you accept the amendment.
To reduce the rating, I just explained, to reduce the gap between residential and commercial instead of 5% as proposed now to 3.5%. So that's the impact.
How does that impact LIM 3?
So I'm happy to keep LIM 3 as is. Well, I'll just remove one sentence that will make it accurate, and I'm happy to continue with the concessions for the Bayswater Town Centre.
Can I just seek advice as to whether that works
Please.
before I go to the mover to
Yep.
ask if they accept?
I'm happy to keep it.
So, Deputy Mayor, you're talking about changing the table.
Changing the table, and in LIM 3, keeping it, but just removing the sentence starting with being until properties.
Removing
So instead of saying being the additional rates payable resulting, we'll remove all that sentence. So we are, because that's the inaccurate sentence. So I will just remove that. So 2 amendments, replacing the table and removing 1 sentence. But keeping the rest will stay as is, the intention.
So we'll just try and work it out before. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, so in LIM 3, I'll tell to the minute taker, LIM 3, in the middle, there is a sentence starting with the words being the additional rates. You see that one? Yeah, remove just that sentence until the dot point. Being all the sentence starting with from being until where you reach a dot point.
I think the concession amount will change though, Deputy Mayor, because it won't be the same percentage.
So this one I'm removing the sentence to simplify it.
But you can't have the 6,882 is an inaccurate figure.
Oh, I will just keep the sum. I will keep the same sum. I'll keep the sum, but not the rationale.
No, but the sum will be different.
But I'm not tying it to the same rationale. So I'm just said that sentence besides the last sentence. Just keep the last sentence.
Sorry, I'm just going to go to the director to see if she...
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've updated a model and calculated a new concession which would support the Deputy Mayor's proposed amendment if you wish to replace that figure.
What is the sum?
It would be $4,834
I'm happy to
and
replace
80.
it. Okay, I'm happy to replace it, yeah. Yeah, and that's it. And you can just add the same sentence. The concessions will be funded from the opening surplus. same sentence as before, and that's it.
I'll just check that it's right on the screen before, so that, because it's playing with numbers, I just want to make sure that it's done. So Deputy Mayor, can you confirm that you're happy with what's on the screen reflects your proposed amendment?
Yes, thank you. So I'll just clarify again, the table means that we will reduce the rate in the dollar for all businesses in the city of Bayswater. So it will apply to everyone, to Morley, Maylands, Noranda, everyone.
Does the mover accept the change? Do you accept
I was
the amendment?
just asking, I can't do the quick maths. What's the percentage increase for the residential that occurs from that change?
It goes from 3.46 to 3.8.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that change.
As the seconder, I'm not okay with that change. I'd like to hear if there's a seconder for that and then debate it to see if it'll become part of the substantive. So you're happy to move that amendment? Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Johnson, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes, look, I will only speak on the amendment, and then later on I will speak about the whole item. The amendment is obvious. I think we did consult and we did receive fair enough amount of responses from businesses. And from what I take, it's not a number game from which town centre received more comments. It's about the feedback that we received. And we did receive some concerns from businesses. Definitely there is a strong impact when it comes to the Bayswater town centre, which we all understand when it comes to Metronet. So I'm very happy to support LIMP 3 and provide special support for them during next year. However, I do acknowledge and would like to address the issues with the rate of dollar and minimize the impact, especially when it comes to next year. Like residents, also businesses struggle. So I simply try to address those concerns here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, just on the amendment.
I guess in general, I'm supportive of differential rates. I haven't said that yet because it's a device. So I'll probably talk a little bit. It's a device that we haven't done before. It's a device where we can look at the needs of different areas of our city and try and rate or discount appropriately. I'm not particularly wedded to a particular model on that. I do like the message that the increased rates on vacant land sends. On this particular amendment, I think the intention the Deputy Mayor's trying to make is it's a slightly a smaller buffer, I suppose, for businesses. So I think that meets the pub test, if you like. I think that's a good compromise.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Councillor Osazowski?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
One of the councillors asked what was the increase on the residential. Can I please have some information on what is the decrease on the commercial?
Thank you. I'll go to the director or manager. Whoever.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The proposed commercial that was advertised was an increase of 8.63. and this amendment is an increase of 7.43.
Thank you. In regards to the overall rates yield at the end of all of this, when it's said and done, that final figure that pops out at the bottom, does this impact the rates yield from the original version?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it doesn't.
Did you wish to speak on it? Anyone wish to speak on this item? Councillor Bull.
Thanks to the Deputy Mayor for bringing this forward. I think it's prudent to be minimising our businesses and our commercial and our industrial properties cross-subsidising rates across over 80% of our area. I still believe, though, that there is a better way of doing this in order to deliver a lower uniform rate. And at the end of the day, this is still cross-subsidising by requiring commercial and industrial to have a rate rise. It's still really high, 7.43%. Based on the feedback and sitting through the workshops, I think that this doesn't quite get us there, and that actually a uniform rate and bringing that uniform rate down is actually more prudent. And so I can't support the amendment.
Thank you. I just have a question to the director. Hi, sorry. I just have a question to clarify, just for my own understanding of the amendment. Can you just confirm that the changes made to LIM 3 actually make sense?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
In terms of implementation.
Yes.
and
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would recommend that the majority of that sentence that was removed be reinserted because it provides the basis for how you calculate the concession. It's much more clear. So I would recommend that goes back in.
So right now, we don't know how you're calculating the concession if this was to be adopted.
We would interpret it to mean what those words were reflecting. I just think it would be much clearer if it could be put back in.
I'm happy to put it in.
So I'm just going to get what the exact wording needs to be to reflect that, and then I'll check with Councillor Johnson that she's also happy. Kim, Director, are there any other further changes that need to happen?
Madam Mayor, we've just rerun a model, done some further calculations, and we would appreciate if we could just review this data because it might involve further changes to that rate table.
Councillor Osuzowski.
I was going to move a procedural motion.
Yes.
To adjourn for a couple of minutes so that the city can provide the information that we need.
I think that would be prudent. I'm happy to second a 10-minute adjournment just to make sure that this is right. So a procedural motion is moved by Councillor Osuzowski. I'm happy to second. All those in favour to adjourn for 10 minutes? That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll adjourn. Okay, so we'll recommence the meeting at 8:08 p.m, councillors. So I'll just go to the director if you'd like to explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With recalculating all of these models, when we superimpose the Deputy's Mayor amendment, we've realised that there has been a very minor change also to the vacant residential and the vacant commercial categories. So in terms of the ratio difference, they were advertised at 18.97%. That's now been adjusted to 19.37%. Vacant commercial was at 34.5%. It's been adjusted to 34.98%. So they've both slightly increased by approximately 0.4%, which has then resulted in slightly increased rates in the dollar and minimums.
I'll go to the
I'm
Deputy
sorry, I'm
Mayor to ask a
confused.
question.
So I'm confused. So why are we changing vacant?
Because we, through you, Madam Mayor, we have recalculated the model, had another look at that, and when you change the residential value, it has also then triggered changes to the other all of the other categories, because remembering that residential is the base that you base all of your ratios off. So initially, when you had requested just to change residential and commercial, we recalculated that.
Yeah.
Not picking up that there had been a 0.4% change to those third and fourth vacant categories as well. So they have to be slightly increased to balance the model.
And that will trigger another consultation, or
No.
we can still continue? But
No.
can we do this without changing vacant? Can we do that?
You won't deliver a 5% rate
It's a change.
increase.
Okay, but if it doesn't trigger a new process, it's just slight amendments. I'm happy with this.
Okay, is there anything else, Director, that you wish to bring to the attention?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just reinserting the green highlighted text in Lim 3, just to be super specific on how you calculate the concession.
Deputy Mayor, are you okay with that?
I'm happy. Yep.
Councillor Johnson, are you okay with that? Okay, so we'll continue with the debate on the amendment. Anyone who hasn't spoken on the amendment wish to speak on the amendment? I probably will support this amendment. It's not ideal. It's not what I wanted. It's not what the motion that I put forward. But I think that overall, you know, there needs to be a bit of give and take with this, and that for the overall outcome of what we can deliver for our ratepayers, that I will support this amendment. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Latta?
Yeah, I just, I don't support it because I don't think that it touches that issue of equity that I'm concerned about between commercial, industrial and residential. I don't think that it continues to cross-subsidise using the smaller number of commercial and industrial properties to create great increases in the residential, small decreases in the residential rate at the cost of a really large increase on the commercial rate. And for all the businesses that I know that are existing month to month, this is going to have a really big impact on them. And there are plenty of those businesses outside of the Bayswater Town Centre who, in these economic times, have made their plans, have done their budgets, and are still struggling, a lot. And I think that this will hit them hard and also create the precedent. So next year, what's going to happen? Are we going to have, I think people will feel a lot freer to increase that commercial rate a lot more, and that's really worrying to me. I think that that problem of equity and undermining economic development in those town centres is really paramount for me, and this doesn't address that. So,
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? On the amendment? If not, I'll go the mover to close.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. It is, as was said before, a compromise. I think it will show that we listened even further to some of the feedback from our community, and specifically from businesses, including those that might not have the chance or were not aware of this process. So we're already addressing those future concerns that we might hear later on. And as was also indicated, each year we need to advertise it, so that will be an opportunity for us to further review those rate in the dollars. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm putting the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Latta and Councillor Bull. The amendment is carried as part of the substantive motion. So I'm going back to the substantive motion. Deputy Mayor, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think it will be, thank you, councillors, first of all, for the amendment. I think it will be a bad outcome if we leave this meeting tonight with a uniform rate. We should make the change tonight, and it is the time. We have been discussing it for years. For years, we had so many workshops. I think started in November just for this budget. We had, I think, a motion from Councillor Johnson a year or 2 years ago, was supported by the council. We are on the path, and this is the final stage. We consulted. Only one person in our whole community objected to having differential rate in its entirety. It's in the report, only one. So I think not supporting differential rating is beyond going against the Paxson report, against the advice from our financial team. It also goes against the feedback that we received from our community big time. We also had very strong support, not only for differential rating, but also to have different separate rating for vacant land. People do not want to see land banking in our city anymore. And we should encourage more development, especially now with the current housing crisis. We cannot do much around this issue as a local government, but this is one of the only things, maybe the only one that we can do to promote more housing. And I will support the motion on the table to ensure that those who are struggling at the moment might have a better future in a few years to come. We all know the vacant lots along Guildford Road, all around the suburbs. We are known in the city of Bayswater. People come and just buy it and keep it for years because they can. All the local governments around us already moved long time ago to differential rates. We are behind. Businesses, we are investing a lot of money in our town centres. In all of them, we are in negotiations to purchase a car park in Maylands. Thankfully, we already purchased a car park in Bayswater. We did a $3 million investment in the Morley Town Centre and more on Russell Street coming. And all town centres, we are investing, and businesses and business owners and property owners in those town centres will benefit from that. It costs money. I will finish with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll go, Councillor Sutherland.
Yeah, I've listened to this with interest. I think this recommendation is a good, it's a good compromise. Obviously, we've had to, well, we haven't had to, but it's strongly recommended that we bring in this differential rating. We've had a report through the Paxson report that's recommended that, and this is really important for the financial sustainability of the council. Also, it's obvious after the workshops, obvious to me anyway, that the council needs to have a more contemporary practice for this. We are lagging behind other councillors that have been using this method for many years. Now, I was interested earlier on, I think Vincent, they said that the rates for commercials going down, but I know that in a lot of other councils, the rates for commercial businesses, we're still lower than most others, and some go up to 12 to 14%. So we have to keep that in mind. I do feel for the business owners in Basie and also in Maylands to a lesser extent. This Metronet, while it's going to be good in the long term, is having massive untold effects, not just on businesses but residents. And I do hope, we've got a state election next year, we'll probably have a federal one coming up, that we can get some money on the table. Both state and federal government have got rivers of gold. I keep saying that. It's true because through mining. We don't, and it would be great if they came to the table to help. And as I said, I mean, these businesses will benefit in the long term from the railway, but in the short term, we have to help them where we can. It's interesting to see out of the submissions, a lot of them that didn't vote for this were Basie town site. They've probably just about had enough, and I would say a lot of the submissions that were for it were residents because it's a lower rate for them as well. Just while I'm on my high horse, I would like to say we talk about vacant land. I do agree with what people have said about that because we don't like land banking. But on the other side of the coin, I've got property in Stirling and I'd love to build, but at the moment the costs are just astronomical, so we do have to keep that in mind. My big bugbear for Morley particularly is the big land holdings like Bunnings. We can't do anything with them because they're improved, but it's obvious to me that that's just land banking, and it would be great if we could have done something that with, but we can't. But on the whole, I think this is the best of what we can do. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll go to the mover to close.
Yeah, that was a huge one, and I thought it was probably going to go that way. So, but look, I think probably a balanced outcome in the end. It's been something that's, as many have mentioned, there's been numerous workshops on this. It's kind of untold hours, to be honest, from the city staff. But I think this is another step forward in, I guess, a more sustainable financial position, as Paxton's been mentioned, but definitely has been on the mind of all the budgets since I've been a councillor. Is really trying to get that under control and long-term financial plan. All the pieces are coming together. So I think this is another step forward, and look forward to the support of it.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Ossowski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Latta and Councillor Bull. That is carried. Okay. So we'll now move on to item 10.3.4, request for removal of trees. Councillor Latta, you pulled this item.
Yeah, I want to speak against it, so.
So you're not moving the officer's recommendation? No. Someone like to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Palmer, do I have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Palmer. Just your microphone. Okay.
Thank you. This is a difficult one, and I respect the petition that's been handed through to the city, and also I respect where the different views are coming from. We all like trees. This are 2 Melaleuca trees are being requested and have been requested since 2020. It's not on my verge, it's on someone else's. It's on the city verge, and they've been as helpful as they can. This has been going on from 2020. And the difference in the different remarks and comments that have come through from various officers over that time haven't helped. What the city has done is their best. And I think through that, we need to really look broader. This homeowner has been through the mill with this situation. It may not be what we all agree to, but he is the homeowner, and these trees are there every day of his life. Now, the officers in this, they say a new larger species could be planted in a better location between the pathway and the curb. A larger tree would both shade the pathway and the road surface. And it goes on saying modifications to encourage increased groundwater recharge through the implementation of water-sensitive urban design. The new location would reduce the impact on the property. The new tree location would be as such to reduce the impact of any future subdivision of the property. In the event of a future subdivision, the new tree location would enable further trees to be planted. Everything is positive in the acceptance of taking the two melaleucas away, which in this report says is not a good shady tree, but the one that they will replace it will have that shade complemented. And I think looking at common sense, I know it's not what tree people want, and I consider myself a tree person as well. There's been money spent on both sides, massive time spent on both sides, and we have to come to a good conclusion that will satisfy everything. If a better tree and a larger tree is situated there, patience will prevail and we will have the shade that it needs. And that's why I really would like to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland?
Yeah, I have. Yep. Yeah, that's a good explanation. I haven't got much more to say, but I do think the second limb replaces a tree with a larger variety of trees centralised on the verge would make more sense, and it would give more shade. They're not very good shaded trees, and I also think, and I'm appreciative that everybody cares enough to sign a petition, but the person who's living there is the one that's got to be, their way of life, and that is affected by it. So I think we have to look at the individual case in this case, and if we talk about, I know some of you are going to say, well, there's two trees going and we've got one. But just for those, I planted an apple tree before I went, so that's the second tree, if you want to know.
Thank you. Councillor Ball?
Can I ask for an amendment to be proposed?
What's the amendment?
In limb 2, where it says replacing the trees with A, delete that conjunction and replace it with the number 2, larger variety of tree, and then just delete the word centralised. So it just says replaces the tree with 2 larger variety of tree on the verge. Yeah, that's it.
I'll just check with the mover and seconder if they're happy with that amendment.
I'm just wondering really if this is a larger tree, which we expect, is that practical? I know it's got quite a large frontage, but would that be practical in this case? And the officer might be able to tell us.
Sorry, Councillor Bull, can you just confirm what's on the screen is actually what you are amending? With 2 larger variety trees? Okay, so does the mover accept or not?
If I could ask the officer in charge.
Sorry, the rain is so loud.
Sorry, if I could ask the officer whether that's a practical situation for large trees.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go to the director, sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, the preference is to put one larger tree, mainly for the reason that if you've got a large canopy, you don't want 2 large trees together where the canopies are touching and interfering with each other. But you could potentially, I suppose, put 2 trees, but they'll probably be placed closer to the boundaries. So one closer to the crossover and one closer to the boundary with the neighbouring property, and they might not be as large as what's been proposed. I believe the officers were planning to put in a liquid amber tree in there. To put 2 trees, we probably have to go for something slightly smaller.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the amber trees are really large trees, and they would crash.
So
Their canopy would crash. Could I just ask if the mover would, take a good thought on that first?
So it's up to you, Councillor Palmer, if you accept the amendment or not, and then if you don't, it's fine, we can debate
I'll accept
that.
the amendment.
Pardon?
I'll accept the amendment.
But does the seconder accept?
I agree. I think it's really hard to... Let's shout. I think it's really hard to tell because the way it was written, it was a centralised location, a bigger tree. So now we're having 2 large trees, and where are they going to go? So, yeah, it's hard. I'm going to leave it. I don't want to second it.
Okay. So I'm just going to check if there's a seconder for the amendment. No, that lapses. So we're still with the officer's recommendation that's been moved. Councillor Bull, do you wish to speak to the officer's recommendation?
Thank you. Yeah, I will. I'm not going to support what's before us. Interesting to find out that the proposed tree is a liquid amber. I would have hoped that an endemic species or a native species would be planted in the verge. So, that's disappointing. And I actually, we've had a continuous approach to get as many trees and verges as possible, and all of a sudden a shift to the way in which that the city has decided to approach this is difficult to understand without actually receiving, a memo or a briefing. So that is really, I find that really challenging to not even know that the city is changing its approach and the reason why, other than some back and forth in a council meeting. So I really struggle with that as well. I'm disappointed that the officer's recommendation doesn't propose planting the tree and allowing it to grow before the existing trees are removed. So we're going to have a significant period of time where we have a decrease in the canopy cover, where actually a recommendation could have been to plant the tree today and then remove the existing trees in 3 years' time or 4 years' time. I would have felt more comfortable with that. However, that's not before us, and I think losing this canopy cover right now without having a more strategic approach to how to maintain the canopy coverage and introducing a new approach to the way that we plant verges with minimal explanation as to why we've changed our approach means I can't support this recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. You probably won't be surprised, I'm not going to be supporting the request to remove the trees here. I certainly heard from the landowner who did say he doesn't live there and does intend to develop the site. I did hear from the landowner the distress that these trees have caused him, and I'm very, I want to acknowledge that this item has become, a real test, I guess, particularly for the landowner who's made the request, and acknowledge his, the distress this has caused him. It's caused distress across the whole community. That's why people are signing petitions to save trees, because despite the fact we're hearing rain now, we've got dead trees everywhere, and the forecast is we're going to lose 3% of rain every year. We have no more groundwater allocations available to us. The prospect of growing new trees, even if it is a larger variety of tree, is really tricky. These were large trees. They could be large trees. The Quincuneva, it means, I think 5 fingers. The leaves have got 5 fingers on these Melaleucas tea trees, paperbark tea trees. They like having wet feet. The neighbours next to them. I mean, I don't think these trees are really in the wrong place. The neighbours next to them, like 3 blocks, I think the neighbours next to them have olive trees. I think, like myself, I went and had a look at them, like I'm sure all councillors did during the last few weeks. And then the neighbours next to them have, I think it was the Queensland box. So none of which are, no, locally endemic species, but trees that, and I know we're going to get better at choosing trees that are appropriate for our future climate and our future canopy needs to reduce the heat island effect, particularly in areas like Morley where we have a devastatingly low level of canopy. I actually want to thank the landowner for having these trees. It is a thing. It is a privilege and sometimes a lot of work to maintain and host trees on your verge. They do have, of course, fabulous benefits, but having raked up the remnants of 4 Queensland box trees every year for the last 30 years, I know it's a lot of work. But I think the importance of keeping these, the fact that we're hearing a recommendation to chop them down because of a council, like an error made along the way, is probably not a good justification. It's disappointing, but I think we can move on. If I was issued a parking fine and someone had told me, oh, don't worry, you can park there, it's fine, I really wouldn't have any grounds to go and complain about, the parking fine. I'd have to pay it. So I think that's, an unfortunate error, but these things happen. I think if anyone, like the city or the landowner, was serious about wanting to replace the canopy from the removal of the trees, another tree, a replacement tree, would have been planted years ago. That was the time to do it when these issues first arose. So I would, so I'm not supporting this one.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm not going to support this as well. I think what Councillor Bull and also I think Councillor Johnson indicated that if that was already dealt in the past by planting or even suggesting now planting some trees and letting them grow, I think I agree that would have been much more beneficial to this case. It is very rare, councillors, as you know, to get petitions on items on the agenda, and we did receive a petition from the community with 124, if I remember correctly, community members who took the time to tell us that they are objecting it. And for them, it's not a personal issue, and not for me, and hopefully not for anyone around the table. It is about the issue about removing healthy, mature trees in our city. The reason that was provided, having nice grass or lawn under those trees or around them, it is not a reasonable reason to cut 2 healthy trees. And it is not because this is what the council decided on in the policy. This is why we have policies. And the policy was very specific and very detailed, and we did provide exemptions in specific situations, and lawn was not one of them. And what will happen tomorrow? Any person, if this is approved, any person around the city can ask to remove their veg trees if they want nice lawn. And how can we say no if we approve that one? And consistency is important. I think it was 3 years ago when we received another request to remove a tree. I think it was also in Morley, I don't remember the name of the street, and council objected to that and rejected. Again, after a lot of community opposition. But now, in this case, we might be supporting this. We are in a canopy crisis. I think it will be not reasonable of me to support something like this, knowing the hundreds of trees that we can all see around the city dying, knowing the climate problems, issues, crisis, whatever you want to call it, in Perth. We have not even got to start dealing with the issue around the loss of trees on private land. So now we're starting to even remove trees on our land, on the public's land. That is a big concern. We have a strategic community plan, again, another plan. It mentioned very clearly from the community, we consulted, they want landscapes, they want tree canopy, they want shade for footpaths, for cyclists. This is not just a veg, so it's not only a tree canopy issue, councillors, it's also about pedestrians, about people with disabilities, about older people that just walk because they can't drive anymore. Think about the 90-year-old woman who walks with her walker, and she needs the shade when it's 40 degrees outside in Perth. This is what's happening in summer. And she will not enjoy that patch, and she might not enjoy in other patches because those requests might come again. So I do also share the concerns about this recommendation. I don't think an error in any level should result in removing two public assets, any assets in the city of Bayswater. There are other ways to deal with errors. I think it should have come to us if there was a problem, and that is fine, but the recommendation should have not be to remove it. It should have been to keep it. I'll finish with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Latta, yep.
Thank you. I agree with the comments that have already been made against this. I think that removal on grounds of aesthetic impact is not a good precedent to set. The owner of the adjacent property, and I use that term deliberately because these trees are city trees on city land, he's clear that it impedes the growth of lawn on his verge. And although alternatives have been offered, like mulching, he doesn't find that acceptable because it doesn't match the streetscape around him. To me, that's just not a legitimate reason to remove a healthy tree. As for the officer's mistake that had been made in the advice given to him, I think if somebody makes a mistake or gives the incorrect advice, then the proper thing to do is to course correct and go down the correct path of applying the policy correctly, not double down and compound the mistake by following the bad advice. So I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Eveson.
Yeah, look, I'll just say a few things. Look, I'm going to support this one because I think, look, with all the changes that we've made to tree policies over the last few years, it's really been focused around trying to get residents to love the trees that they have, love their verges, look after them, and improve the streetscape aside from all the other environmental benefits. Clearly, this situation's got to a point where this landowner despises these trees. He clearly, some landlords don't really look after properties very well, and you can see that this gentleman takes a lot of pride in his property. He looks after it for residents. It looks good from the streetscape, well manicured, well looked after. So I think I'm comfortable to support this. I'm not excited about removing trees. Don't get me wrong, but I think this is the right decision to make for this landowner because I can see moving forward with the right tree in the right location, it will thrive, and you'll get more tree canopy than currently. What I see here is that the city's had to grind the footpath, already. You can see from the images there, and there's already been pruning. So I foresee the future of constant pruning requested by this landlord, and so I think this will be a better outcome in the long term, where he'll be happy. We will have some short-term pain. I agree with canopy, but this is going to be an issue or a matter that comes up often, as we see either trees die or the wrong sort of trees for an urban environment to thrive. So these trees are thriving because they're getting irrigated by the irrigation system that's probably fallen over and leaking water everywhere. So, look, I'm comfortable to support the officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Osazowski.
Thanks. I'm going to ask some questions if I can.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just in regards to some planning components, I want to ask a question about subdivision potential at that property. So my first question is what are the potential ways that property can be subdivided?
I'll go to the director.
Thank you, through the chair. The property could be subdivided what we consider as side to side, so that's two lots fronting the street, or battle axe, whereby you have a lot fronting the street and a lot behind that.
So who decides? So if the applicant comes and wants to do a battle axe, the city goes, yeah, great, do a subdivision. If the applicant comes along and wants to do a side by side, does the city say, yep, great, that's within the guidelines and the policies and the rules, yes, you can do a side by side?
Through the chair, the city is not the decision maker on subdivisions. That is the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage with the West Australian Planning Commission.
Yep.
The city is simply a referral agency in the subdivision process. If the city felt that a side-by-side was not appropriate, for example, as a result of the removal of trees, it could recommend that to the commission or the department. However, the department would determine the application based on their requirements, and currently that does not include the consideration of trees to the degree that potentially this council would like it to.
Thank you. In regards to the crossover policies that the city has, are you able to give me a little bit of information on the city's crossover policies? And how that works with subdivisions?
Sure, through the chair, each lot is allowed one crossover as of right. The city minimises crossovers, so we do not, we generally do not support 2 crossovers for a single lot.
Even though the city might not support 2 crossovers for a single lot, it's up to the Department of Planning and the West Australian Planning Commission to make that decision ultimately anyway, isn't it?
Through the chair, no. So the Department of Planning doesn't determine crossovers. However, for example, if a side-by-side subdivision was approved by the state government, then each of those lots as of right would be able to have a crossover.
I don't need to ask any more questions, thank you.
Do you wish to speak on the item?
I'm happy to vote against the officer's recommendation, knowing that it sounds like the applicant can go and get what he wants if he wants to remove the trees anyway.
Okay, so I think I'm the only one who hasn't spoken, so I'm going to speak. Yeah, there was a few comments made by a few councillors that I just want to address. So things I think about are, you know, the principles of right trees in the right place. We know as a city that, you know, being quite an established city, there have been trees planted in the past that are the wrong trees in the wrong place. And that is something that eventually this city and this council is going to have to deal with, because those wrong trees in the wrong places have impacts that are ongoing impacts. And, you know, I think the town of Claremont, if I'm not wrong, even went through an entire process in the last few years. I think it's the town of Claremont, I might be wrong, but where they had to remove a whole bunch of existing trees because they identified that whilst they were grown and established, they were the wrong species of trees for that urban area. And they went through, you know, that little bit of pain to get rid of those and plant more appropriate species. And that is why I'm going to be supporting the officer's recommendation, because it provides a better long-term outcome for the city. It is providing better canopy coverage for the city in the long term. And if we had agreed to this resident's request 4 years ago, when he initially asked for this, that new tree would have been at almost 50% canopy growth. As we heard last week, it can take, you know, between 5 to 10 years to reach that canopy thing. We would have been in a better position now if we had thought more longer term instead of such short-term fixated on keeping things that aren't necessarily good. And in terms of endemic and native versus other trees, some other trees have better canopy coverage than the endemic native trees that are quite sparse, and you can go and have a look at them across our city. We have lots of these really large trees, but the canopy just isn't that thick. So we're not getting the best canopy coverage that we can with those species. So let's have real conversations about the species of trees that we want to plant across our city and make better decisions for the longer term, so that we don't have to keep grinding roots, repairing cracked footpaths. You know, you talk about people using those footpaths, you know, and need shade. They also need not to have a tree root coming up and cracking it and making them trip, and a hazard in that way as well. So we just need to show a bit of common sense on this and look for a better long-term outcome And so that's why I'm supporting the officer's recommendation. So I'll go back to the mover to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose in hindsight, as you say, if we'd planted a tree 4 years ago, this may not be such a problem. But I think 4 years is a huge time for a liaison between city and homeowner, and he is the homeowner and a resident of the city of Bayswater. And I feel that we need to sort of justify both sides. I also feel that although they call it an error that may have occurred, it could be that when it first began, it wasn't an error. But as time proceeds and trees grow and cracks come through pavements and roots come up, times change things. So I respect what the officers have done for so long to try and assist a resident who obviously it's become a bit of a bugbear. And I also feel that native trees are great. They're not always the best shade. And even the experts say we need to have a variety, not just native, but non-native as well, because climate change is actually affecting all the trees, not just natives. So from that respect, you know, I feel that if these two trees, as the officers are saying, are not giving the canopy that we'd like it to see, this is a start of a new change that's happening. This is a unique situation. Not everybody's had 4 years of hell in trying to organise, and when I say hell, I mean the officers have had hell as well, you know, so I respect it from that point of view. So there's been no mistake as far as I'm concerned from officers. I think everyone has tried their best to get to a good point where we can get a good canopy tree. In exchange, we have to be patient. I'm happy to support the officers as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Easton, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Sutherland and myself. All those against is Councillor Ostrzowski, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson. That is lost. Okay, so we'll now move on. Oh, that concludes all the items in section 10 that were subject to deputation. So we'll move on to the remaining items that were withdrawn by councillors. The first one, we have an impartial interest in item 10.2.1, which is financial reports for the period ended 30 April. Do I have a mover for this? Move Councillor Bull. Seconded Councillor Johnson. Councillor Bull, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Johnson. Anyone wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Okay. The next item is 10.4.1, Terms of Reference Reconciliation Advisory Committee. Councillor Ostrzowski, you've pulled this?
Yes, and I'd like to move what the officers have put for Lim 1, but make the amendment to take out Lim 2, please.
Sorry, you've provided that amendment?
No,
you're just removing.
I have it, I'm just removing
You're just removing Lim 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? For councillors, if I don't have a seconder, you're just reading it? It's just removing. Do I have a seconder? If not, the motion will lapse. So would anyone like to move the, it's lapsed. Would anyone like to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Latta. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bull, Councillor Latta.
Thank you. These are terms of reference that increase the frequency of the Reconciliation Advisory Committee meeting. This is something that came out of our very first meeting. The community members proposed this as a way of building trust after they noticed a large gap in our meetings, which hadn't occurred since August of last year. So what's that, nine months in between, which they found quite alarming. This provides an opportunity to deal with the backlog. We had a huge agenda and only got through 2 items because this committee is discussion-based and relationship-based. Building relationships takes time and is especially difficult under the very formal standing orders and legal framework that this committee is required to operate under. So this change to the terms of reference will give us time and space to do that and to build that trust and show that the city is really committed to reconciliation and to this process. These relationships are important to me and should be valued by everybody who cares about the city's reconciliation work. And we do have a lot of work to do in this term, finishing up outstanding items on the current RAP and hopefully then developing a new one. I'm not sure that these terms of this increased frequency, I don't imagine that it would continue for the whole term. I think that we just need to build that trust and make sure that everybody understands the commitment that the city has to reconciliation.
Councillor Bull.
It occurred to me very quickly in our first Reconciliation Advisory Committee meeting that more frequent meetings were needed with the new committee. I can't imagine that it will require such frequent meetings in perpetuity, or at least through to the end of the entire term of the committee, but it's hard to know at what point we will be able to have less frequent meetings. And the number of items that are on the agenda from the last meeting that we were unable to get to in order to ensure there was proper deep conversation and discussion around those items really reinforced to me the importance of, at least in the early stages, we need to have monthly meetings. Look, it may be that in a year's time we still need monthly meetings, or it may be that we don't and we might need to revisit them again, which the fact that this council meets as regularly as it does means there will be opportunities down the track to revisit, well, if the committee revisits the term of reference, to get that endorsed by council. But at this point, my observation is that it's super important to have these monthly meetings in order to have the chances of the most success possible out of the work that the staff, the community members and the councillors are putting into the committee and the outcomes.
Thank you. I have a question, and I probably will direct this to the mover, who may be able to answer it better than the staff. The current terms of reference state frequency of meetings as required. So I guess my question to you, being the chair of the committee, is if the terms of reference already state as required, and you've indicated, as has the seconder indicated, who you're both members on the RAC, that you don't see it lasting for the entire term, it's more of a catch-up thing. Why is as required not, why isn't it good enough? Why is the change necessary?
I think that just goes back to that, to building that trust, and that, and I can't speak for the community members, but my sense in that meeting was that changing the terms of reference was a way of demonstrating our commitment to that, committing to monthly meetings, as long as the committee feels like they're necessary, is part of building that trust and demonstrating that we're serious about it, particularly after that long gap in meetings. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. I'd like to move an amendment for your consideration that we add an additional Lim 3 that states that council requests the committee request the committee review the terms of reference in 6 months.
I'm happy with that.
Is the seconder happy? Yes. Okay, so that'll form part of the substantive Okay, anyone wish to speak on this item? Councillor Easton?
Yeah, just a few questions. How many agenda items were in the first meeting for this committee?
I'll go to the director.
Thank you. Off the top of my head, I can't recall precisely how many agenda items there were. However, under general business, so it's a different structure to how you see an agenda at council, but under general business, there were a number of items for information and for feedback, and those were the elements that we were unable to get to because it was a new committee, and we also they would like to seek information and a briefing on the governance and the structure of standing orders. So from that perspective, there were a number of items.
Similar question, I suppose. We had the Audit and Risk Committee last night, and one of the members mentioned that they took time with the city outside of a meeting to get across all the, what was on the agenda, what was the intent, all of those sorts of background context. Is that is that something that happens with committees typically, or can happen with committees?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, for both our advisory groups and committees, members, community members particularly, have the ability to contact the manager or myself, and we would be more than happy to speak with them. I do know with the advisory groups, we do receive email communication and also phone calls regarding items, not during the meeting, but throughout the year when there are not meetings.
Okay, thanks. The only other one was just to try and understand impacts, because I know agendas just don't turn up out of thin air. So what's, I guess, the impact to the city in producing agendas every month? I mean, is it what's the current workload versus what this would produce for potentially a 6-month period?
Through the chair, so for the Community Services Directorate, we're responsible for 1 committee and 2 advisory groups. Currently, that equates to 12 meetings a year. This motion will result in those meetings being elevated to 20 meetings a year. In terms of staff preparation time, on average, it takes between 16 and 17 hours of staff preparation per meeting. That does not include attendance. At attendance of those meetings, there are typically 4 staff members, myself included, if I am a delegated non-voting member. So in terms of resourcing, it does take up resourcing within administration, which is why in the council report we have made the comment that we could see this through for the next 4 to 6 months under the current resourcing within the directorate. However, beyond that, we may need to seek consideration by council.
And just to refresh my memory, so we do have advisory groups as well as advisory committees, which are quite, it's new. That was one comment, but I guess one of them, there's some differences between the two. Is that, can you maybe just articulate the differences between that we're seeing so far between a group and a committee?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, so a committee is a formal committee under council, and I'm sure governance has a technical term for that. But ultimately, a committee still has to abide by the standing orders. So therefore, there is more formality. Also, items that go through to a committee that that resolve a resolution that entails council's consideration, we would then have to put that item through to council. Whereas with an advisory group, it is more informal, and they don't have, and likewise with the committee, they don't have delegation, but there's typically no resolutions that would come back to council for consideration unless it was considered by staff and then put through that process. So committees have a higher order ranking than an advisory group. They are more formal than an advisory group. I don't know if there's any other difference that the manager of governance wants to state, but that's effectively the case.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, well, yeah. I probably look. I thanks for the dot point 3 just in regards to review of this, because it seems very relevant. But I guess probably suggesting to the committee it might. I'm just not sure if a committee is the right group, like a term, or the formalities for this is causing some challenges which we're seeing, and we're now seeing some impacts from that, I suppose. So, not sure where I sit on this one, but just thanks for.
Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Johnson. No, you were first, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I was really pleased to see some existing members of our previous Reconciliation Advisory Committee have come back for more, and some fabulous new members. I think the previous Reconciliation Advisory Committee got to a point where they did have some trust and some good relationships, and it is going to be real work for this committee to form that. And I'm very grateful that Councillor Latta is chairing it, because really I think they're the most appropriate person to do this work in good faith. What I heard from the committee, I stayed as observer for just a short time, and saw the committee wrestling with these terms of references as well as the formality. But what I took away from what I heard was the Reconciliation Advisory Committee was very, particularly our community members, were very concerned about the time that had elapsed between the previous meetings, the significant events that have happened in our broader community in that intervening period, and really were asking for real commitment to reconciliation from this council. I think it's National Reconciliation Week right now. The theme is now more than ever, and I think now more than ever we need to listen to our community members. So I think we need to give them the time to be able to really do this important work.
Thank you. Councillor Osazowski.
Thank you. I have a question.
Go ahead.
In regards to scheduling the meetings, who's responsible for determining the scheduling? Does the city say to the chair or to the committee, hey, the next one's scheduled for then, or, this is the date? Or does the chair go to the city and say, hey, we want to have a meeting? How does it work in terms of scheduling these meetings?
We'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Normally the council considers its meeting schedule once a year, and for its ordinary council meetings, and as part of that schedule we also try to look at the dates for the committees and advisory groups. And then as part of that process, when the committee meetings are held, the next meeting is flagged at the close of the meeting to say this is when the next meeting is, so that the committee has an opportunity to say whether or not that date and time is appropriate. The presiding member of the committee also has the option to reschedule a meeting if the proposed time for the meeting isn't appropriate for the committee members. So at the moment, for the Reconciliation Action Committee, Advisory Committee, there are the 4 meetings scheduled, but obviously we would go and find a time to schedule those in monthly.
Can, in those meetings at the end, when you're figuring out the next meeting or when the next meeting is going to be held, can the chair or anyone around that committee at that time say, hey, I think we should hold a meeting sooner?
Through the chair, there's nothing to prevent the presiding member from doing that. Most of the terms of reference, I believe, for all of the committees say meetings as required.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak on the item?
I'm not voting to support this because I don't believe we need limb number 2 and limb number 3. The terms of reference already state that meetings can be held when required, when needed, and we've heard that the chair is able to liaise with the city and at those meetings as well to be able to bring meetings forward or to add additional meetings if they need additional meetings to undertake the work. I think this is navel gazing, this is a waste of time, and we should just be voting for limb 1, period.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. So can I please foreshadow an alternate or an amendment or whatever you want to call it, failing all of this, that it's just for limb 1?
I'll just have to check because... Okay, thank you for that foreshadowed motion. Anyone else wish to speak on this? I will just say that I have taken on board the comments from the chair of the committee in terms of building trust, and that is why there's a feeling that as required may not be appropriate for that reason. Although I do agree that as required, it gives any committee and the ability to determine the frequency. But if that's what needs to happen to build that trust, I accept that. But the other comment that I wanted to make was, there was another comment. Should have written that down. That I also do appreciate, reviewing this as the time comes, but that's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to say about the Reconciliation Committee. Oh, I just wanted to comment on the fact that there's been a few comments around the length in time between the committees, and I understand that, but there are reasons for that. It's not about the city or our lack of commitment towards reconciliation. I want to be really clear. The last one was held in August, and you have to remember we went into caretaker in September, there were elections in October, and then we restructured to allow payment for committees, and that took an advertising period, and we had to determine the amounts. So there are good reasons as to the delay in between the committee meetings. So I want it to be really clear that it is not a reflection on the city's commitment to that. So that's what I want to say. Anybody else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll go the mover to close.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments, because I like, there were reasons why there was such a big gap, and I think that I'm also grateful that Councillor Johnson brought up the referendum last year, because I think that that's the context that we're working in here. We're seeing people who have fresh hurt and fresh mistrust after an opportunity in which they stretched out their hands and offered something that was then rejected. And so I think that it's just important to recognise that relationships need to be built around that and in that context. And I think that I'm glad that we have LIM 3. It's a prompt for us to have another discussion within the committee in 6 months' time. And I hope, and I will be doing everything that I can to build that trust and build those relationships in the interim. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Palmer, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against is Councillor Ostrowski, Councillor Easton, Councillor Sutherland. That is carried. Okay, so that's all the items that have been pulled in section 10. So we'll now move to adopt the remaining items en bloc. Do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Palmer, seconded Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So we'll now move on to notices of motion, which we have 11.1. Councillor Peterson-Pick, Deputy Mayor, proposed installation of additional flagpole at Halliday Park.
Thank you. Yes, I'll move what you see in the agenda.
Do I have a seconder? I'm Councillor Palmer, Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, councillors, at the last Anzac Day ceremony at Halliday Park, I received a request from the Bassendean ISL Eastern Regional to look at the option of installing another flagpole, specifically for the New Zealand national flag, but with options for other ceremonies. They currently carry a folded flag in their cars every year for many years, and you can imagine they need to have everything ready for 6 a.m. Sometimes there is rain, volunteers, some of them are older. They have been doing those ceremonies for our community for so long. The last ceremony, as I heard, was attended and I've seen, but people talking about thousands, right? Thousands, yes. I think it is a very small request from a very worthy group in our community. And I do also want to mention that the president of the ISL, Bassendean ISL, wanted to give deputation last week but missed the deadline. So I spoke to him today, and they are obviously fully support of this. So I deliver his message to the group. He wasn't able to do that in person. So I hope that councillors will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. Yes, it's good to see that this dawn service does have a flagpole from the City of Bayswater without the outstretching forces of the RSL having to do this each year. And it's a struggle for them. We were there watching and we didn't even realise that it was their own flagpole. We were absolutely in shock when they started taking all the bits and pieces. So I'm very pleased that Councillor Peterson-Pigg has brought this up and happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question to the mover. So can you just confirm, as part of your motion, in brackets you've got or any other flags, does that mean, as per the report, where it says in accordance with flag protocols, are you talking about those other flags?
Yes.
Would you consider a minor amendment just to say, or any other flags in accordance with flag protocols?
I'm happy with that, yeah. I'm happy to
Just
change
check
it.
if the seconder's happy. Yes? Yep,
Yeah.
you're happy with that? Yes. If the minute taker could just add those in accordance with flag protocols. Thank you.
Yes, thank
Anyone
you.
wish to speak on this? Councillor Latta.
Thank you. I can see that it would be important for people to feel properly represented at occasions that matter to them and in places that are important to them. So I will support it.
Thank you. Councillor Ossowski.
Thank you. Just a question, if I can.
Yeah.
On the hard copy version here on page 207, on the final paragraph, it reads, the Grace Hardy Memorial Rose Garden features the cenotaph and is a site for commemorative ceremonies and services related to wartime. It is not appropriate to fly any other flags in this area other than the Australian and the New Zealand flag and the flags mentioned above. What about when it's not being used for ceremonial purposes? How can those flagpoles be used in that situation?
I'll go to the director.
Yeah, through the chair. In terms of which flags can be flown there, you can only put up ones related to the services that are being held at the memorial. You can't put other types of flags apart from those ones that are listed in that list in the agenda.
At any time?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak on it? Anyone else wish to speak on it? Councillor Johnson?
Thanks. Getting a vibe that some folks are very particular about their flags. But if a group comes to us and says, they'd feel more representative if they had a flag, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
It's a question.
Councillor Bull.
If the Eagles or the Dockers won the grand final, could we fly the flag of the Eagles or the Dockers?
No.
Well, I'm not supporting the resolution then.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this? I'll just say that I was also contacted by the president of the RSL, spoke to him today, and I'll just confirm what the Deputy Mayor said, that he missed the opportunity to do a deputation, but is fully supportive of this motion. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, I'll go the mover to close. Okay, I'll put this straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Ossowski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against is Councillor Sutherland. That is carried. So we'll now move on to item 12, questions from members without notice. Are there any questions? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know there has been a subject for the dog local law, but I couldn't see in it that there was anything to do with dogs on lead or off lead. So can I just check with the CEO that's not part of the Dog Local Law Act?
I'll go to the CEO.
Yeah, through the chair, my understanding is that through the local law review process that we can do that, but I'll just check with the manager of governance whether there's any other processes, whether that's a schedule that sits outside of it that can be reviewed differently. But I'll just check with the manager.
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, the dog local law does cover that provision and will be reviewed as part of the review of the local law.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have a second question, and that's to do just generally, really, with ACROD bays that I was seeking at one of our committees with regard to Morley Noranda Rec Centre, and also at the Scale Modellers Club. I know there's a minimum, but there's not really a big maximum, so there is room there and there's requests for it. They were under the impression, they've been asking for 4 years at the Morley Noranda Rec Centre for ACROD bays, so I just thought I'd leave you with that rather than a question. But if you know anything, I'd be happy to know. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lasher. Oh,
Thank you. I just have a question about the underground power works in Maylands and the timeline for Western Power to reinstate the verges. Does that timeline, my understanding is that they have 12 months. Does that start from the overall project commencement date or the commencement date on a particular street, say?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, I mean, it's stipulated in the agreement that we have with them. I can't remember off the top of my head which way it is, but what I can do is take that on notice and provide further advice.
Sorry, just keep your mic on and then there won't be an issue.
I was previously advised that some of those verges wouldn't be re-turfed because of concerns about the weather and that the turf wouldn't survive. Now that the rain has come, will we review that and have those verges that were previously turfed re-turfed?
Go to the director.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that one on notice. I'll provide that information together with the other information.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Several months ago, I asked a question here with regards to some neglected facades along Guildford Road on heritage sites like the old Williamson's garage. And the city said that they will send letters to the property owners. I just want to confirm if the letters were sent and whether we received any responses.
Go to the director.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, my understanding is those letters were sent. I'm unclear as terms of what our response rate was, so let me find that information and I'll get back to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Eveson.
Okay. Just checking in on Galleria conversations. Sorry, smile. Just every month, but has there been any updates in regards to Galleria and plans, etc.?
I'll go to the CEO.
Through the chair, I've received no feedback from representatives from Vicinity. However, I did take the opportunity this morning to speak to a representative from Vicinity who was at the city's event, and they were going to follow it up for me as well. So I am hopeful that I will receive a response soon, Madam Mayor.
Cool, thank you. And just another one regarding Bayswater train station defects inspections. Is that process just with checking with the cities? Is that humming along, or how we feel that's going?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, yeah, the inspections have been carried out. We've got a list. We are following that up, and we will be providing some information to councillors in regards to that.
Thanks.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. On the weekend, had the pleasure of attending a planting day at Addlestone Reserve, adjacent to the new Morley train station. There were residents there who were really keen to get planting because they were very fond of the original park, very attached to the Bankshire woodland and the black cockies that used to feed there. It doesn't look like that anymore. Just wondering if Metronet has completed their reinstatement of the park or if they've got more work to do.
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that one on notice. I can provide further information on that. I'll have to just check to see where it's at the moment.
Any other questions, councillors? If not, I'll move to item 13, new business of an urgent nature. There is none this evening. Item 14, confidential items. There is none. And I will now close the meeting at 9:23 p.m. Thanks, councillors.